Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 124 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Sam.
And let's just jump into this thing.
Okay.
Hey, yesterday we went out to dinner with my family. Well, it was really more of a late lunch. With my
that's
family.
accurate.
And we went to a place in Erie, Pennsylvania that is called the Wooden Ladle.
Indeed it is.
And I thought we would talk a little bit about what vegan options we ended up finding there. It's a ramen place, so.
Yes, specifically Wooden Ladle does ramen and rice bowls. Now, ramen is one of my favorite things.
Uh-huh.
I love ramen.
You're
so much.
Sucker for a good ramen.
Yeah, but that doesn't have the same ring.
No,
we don't have a catchphrase for that yet, but I do absolutely adore ramen. So any chance to have ramen is a good thing to me. And so I was really, really excited to see that they do, in fact, have a plant-based ramen called The Green.
Yeah.
And this ramen is vegetable broth, and it was a beautiful mushroom-centered, really savory, umami-forward broth. It was beautiful.
I tasted the broth, and it was very umami, very rich tasting.
Yeah,
it was delicious.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And then it had mixed vegetables, corn, a soft tofu, scallions, ajitama, and nori. Now, the one thing to know about this dish, and I wasn't aware when I ordered it, ajitama is basically an undercooked soft-boiled egg.
It is. It seems to be like a marinated soft-boiled egg of some kind.
And I didn't know that. I wasn't familiar with the term, but I just kind of went in assuming, since everything else in the dish was vegan, that was just something within Japanese cuisine that I wasn't familiar with. And it was. Yeah. It just wasn't a vegan thing.
And the woman who waited on us was super apologetic. She took it away right away. She's like, oh, okay, no problem. We'll get you another one.
Right. And it was very simple. I just kind of went, oh, is that an egg?
Yeah.
And we had mentioned at the beginning of the meal that we were vegan. And she was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
And, had I known, I would have very simply asked for it to be excluded. But I just wasn't aware.
It's another case of just label your menus.
Yeah, it would be helpful, because then I would have known what that was. And I could have said, okay, this sounds great, and I'm really excited about this dish, and can we leave off the egg?
Just leave off the egg. That was the only thing on it that made the dish not vegan.
Right.
Yeah. We also we got a couple of starters too.
Oh, we did. And the starters, the crispy tofu starter, which was a deep fried tofu tossed with sweet chili sauce and peanuts, was fabulous.
Yeah, it was perfectly done. It was these little bars of flash fried tofu with that sauce, and it was like perfectly fried.
Oh my God.
It was like this, just like this super thin layer of crispiness on the outside and then super creamy on the inside.
Yes, and not at all greasy.
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah, not even remotely greasy. And the dipping sauce in the sweet chili sauce that it came with was lovely. And the peanut was a great accent. So that was really beautiful. And Linda also got an order of their grilled edamame.
Yeah, those were very good. They're grilled edamame with some sea salt. You can't go wrong there.
You really can't. So you just get the beautiful, warm edamame with that hit of salt. And this is where you get them in the pods.
Yeah, in the shell.
Yeah. So, you're kind of popping the individual beans.
Kind of stick it in your mouth and pop it out. They're really good.
They're very, very tasty.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful. Yes. And my ramen, outside of, the egg moment, once I got the veganized version of the ramen, it was really quite lovely.
Yeah.
The vegetables were nice and fresh. They had a really lovely bite to them. The noodles were cooked perfectly. The broth, again, was just delightful. Anything that comes with bean sprouts is a plus for me. I just love sprouts of any kind. So it was a really, really pleasing dish. The only thing I wished was that it had just a little bit more heat.
Yeah, most ramens do have just a little bit of heat, if not a lot of heat, depending on...
Something to just punch it up a little bit. Like, I don't know, maybe occasionally you'll get a ramen that has a bit of jalapeno in it, or, just some kind of pepper that notches up the heat just a little bit, even just like red pepper flakes or something along those lines. But it was really, really lovely. And
I thought
fantastic
it was...
for a cold, rainy day.
Yeah, just the little taste I had of the broth, I thought it was really well done. And like I said, it was rich and umami. And, yeah.
Yeah, the broth was lovely.
Yeah. And I had a Japanese curry dish. Sam's going to have to tell me what exactly it was because she's got the menu in front of her and I do not.
You had the curry rice with tofu.
That's what I did.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
And so the curry rice is a Japanese curry with onion, potato, and carrot served with rice and your choice of protein. And Christine, of course, went with the tofu.
Yeah. Now, again, this meal, there was no heat.
No.
It was like a rich tomato-based curry, Japanese curry. And then it had like root vegetables. It had like potato and the tofu and carrot. And it was lovely. And then they serve it alongside of a nice big round heap of white rice.
Yes.
It was really satisfying because it was like a cold, rainy day yesterday. So it was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really nice. And another thing that we found at Wooden Ladle that was absolutely spectacular was their ginger tea.
Yeah. I got the ginger tea. My sister Linda also got the ginger tea. And Sam got a jasmine tea. And then she was wishing she'd gotten a ginger tea when it came because it wasn't just a regular old tea from a tea bag. It was obviously something that they batch make. And it was this beautifully heavy gingered, just a touch of sweetness, like almost like a cider, like a ginger cider.
Just the smell of this ginger tea was phenomenal.
Yeah,
and I took a sip of Christine's and I was just like, oh, wow, I should have gotten that because that's really good.
Yeah, she's like, I should have got that.
There was nothing wrong with my jasmine green tea.
Right.
It was perfectly fine.
Sure.
But it was your average jasmine green tea that you get from a tea bag.
Yeah.
But this ginger tea was something very special.
It was good. And again, perfect for the cold, rainy day that it was.
Yeah.
And the Wooden Ladle is in this beautiful old, like 1800 stone house nestled in the woods. It's really pretty. And where we were sitting, it's just surrounded by windows. So all you can see is like the wooded area behind the building. And it's a really lovely atmosphere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they have music playing and all their music is like popular songs done instrumentally.
Entirely by string quartet.
Yeah, like string quartets.
Yeah.
So it was fun. We were all sitting around trying to guess what the song was. And then a gentleman eating next to us actually chimed in and saved us on one we couldn't figure out.
It was pretty great.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, points to him on that.
I mean, until you've heard Welcome to the Jungle done by a string quartet.
Yeah, I think that's really the only way that Welcome to the Jungle is acceptable.
I totally agree. You know, I mean, apologies to any
Guns N' Roses fans out there, but
fans.
Still.
Yeah, not one of my favorite songs. They're not one of my favorite bands.
No.
Anyway, that was really fun. So we did that. And then afterwards, after dinner, it was my brother-in-law's birthday. That's why we were all together and celebrating. Happy birthday, Rudy. And afterwards, we went back to their house and we played some board games.
We did. We played a game called Castle Panic, which was a whole lot of fun. And this is a board game that we actually own. And actually, I believe we gave it to my brother a few years ago, and we actually gave it to Trey and Savannah as well. I'm pretty sure that was a gift from us.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was also.
Yeah, so we played Castle Panic for the first time, and it was a lot of fun. We played it almost entirely wrong the first time.
We did.
And then the second time, we played it closer to right, but still wrong.
But hey, we had a good time.
We did have a good time, and we figure, eventually we'll get it.
Yeah, and then we finished the game in enough time for us because had started snowing, so we wanted to get on the road and get home. And we got home in time to play Mario Kart with my family.
Yes.
Which we do virtually.
Our weekly Mario Kart tournament, which happens on Sunday evenings.
It's like, hey, we gotta leave hanging out with you people so we can go
hang
home.
out with you people.
So we can go home and play Mario Kart virtually with you. It was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But it was a good day.
Yeah, it was a good time. We had a good time. And the Wooden Ladle is definitely an option if you're in the Erie, Pennsylvania area.
Absolutely. They don't have a large number of vegan options, but they do have at least 3 main dishes that, if not already vegan, can be easily veganized. Yeah. And in 2 of those cases, in the case of the green ramen and the Garden Delight rice bowl, All it is a matter of removing that ajitama.
Yeah, tell them to hold the ajitama, which is an egg. So,
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I may have complained in the past about restaurants just not understanding that if they just label things clearly.
Well, it just comes from our recent experiences in the UK where everything is labeled.
Yeah, I mean, it's
us
so
wishing
easy
that the US would catch up.
Yeah, it's just so easy. I think if you run a restaurant, I think it's something that they don't think about. Just label things for allergens, for, if they're vegan or vegetarian. It really makes things so much simpler for not only your patrons, but for the people serving them.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Because then if a question is asked by a patron, by a customer, then the server knows the answer.
Yeah.
They can say, yes, that does contain peanuts. And so you might want to stay away from that if you that kind of a thing.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to talk about as far as what we've been up to over the past week?
No, not really. I mean, it's just been back to work for me.
Yeah.
And so starting to get into the swing of the semester. Spring, especially the beginning of the spring semester, is kind of insane.
Spring swing.
Yeah, it's definitely the spring swing, and it is a little bit crazy. Turns into a very, very hectic work week. We do program auditions on Saturdays through February and March. So yeah, a little nutty right now.
Yeah.
But all to the good. It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess keeping it in the food vein, not that you were just talking about food, but
whatever.
We were just a moment ago. We have a recipe this week.
Oh, we sure do.
Yeah. So here's this week's recipe from our Vegan Cookbook Challenge. This week, I made a recipe out of one of the wonderful books that my wonderful wife, Sam, got me for Christmas. And this book is called Craving Vegan. It's by Sam Turnbull. And she also has a wonderful food blog and YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with her, she goes by the name It Doesn't Taste Like Chicken.
That's cute.
Yeah, and her recipes are great. And the recipe that I made out of this book this week was her vegan spinach quiche. And it was fabulous.
It really was. Quiche is one of those things that Christine used to make quite frequently before we went vegan.
I love quiche.
Yeah. And we've obviously had far fewer quiches in the past few years than we used to. This was outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. So we did the quiche, or I should say Christine did the quiche with a pre-bought pie crust.
Yeah, even in the recipe, she does have a recipe for a pie crust if you have that kind of time or if you love to bake. I notoriously seem to screw baking recipes up. So also in the recipe it says, but don't be afraid to use a store-bought vegan pie shell.
Yes.
So hey, I found some Marie Callender's. Is that the brand?
I believe so.
Vegan pastry shells. And they came in packs of 2, so I might make this again.
Awesome. Bring it on.
Yeah, and it's a tofu-based recipe. It's super simple, very straightforward, no strange ingredients. You can whip this off in no time at all. If you would love to make like a Sunday brunch or something, it would be perfect for that. Make it with some potatoes on the side. I served it with a big green salad, and like I can't recommend this recipe or this book more. It's really awesome.
Yeah, the recipe was fantastic. The quiche, because it was a tofu base, it was incredibly light, incredibly fluffy, and you can tell that it would make that basic recipe is so easily transformable.
Oh yeah.
Like you could do anything.
You could add other
in
things
this
in
quiche.
there. Yeah.
Like you can add more veg. I love broccoli quiche.
Yeah.
So to put some broccoli or some zucchini or even some asparagus like into this recipe.
Asparagus would be good.
Right? Yeah. Would be absolutely amazing. But what I really appreciated about the recipe as it is that you could, like, it was so spinach forward.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of times in quiche recipes, even vegan quiche recipes, because there's usually a cheese element.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, there's often a cheese element.
Yeah.
And so that can overpower the vegetables. And this just didn't.
Yeah, it's very clean tasting.
Oh, it was so clean tasting.
Yeah.
And I loved just Oh my gosh, I am biting into this and it is spinach.
It's a spinach quiche for
It's
sure.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to make it again. And like, I would add like maybe roasted red pepper.
Nice.
And some zucchini, like Sam said, or asparagus, like Sam said. The possibilities are endless.
They really are.
So get your hands on this book. She also has other cookbooks. Her last cookbook was a bestseller, and it was called Fast, Easy, Cheap Vegan.
Nice.
Yeah. So we'll put a link to this book in the show notes if you want to get your hands on it, or you can watch our social media because I always post links on our social media also. You can get Sam's book. It's fabulous. Again, it's called Craving Vegan. Oh, one cool thing about this book before I move on is she puts in the book, if you're craving, go to this. So like each recipe says what craving it's going to satisfy.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah. So this recipe on the top, it has the little craving thing. And it says if you're craving eggy, carby, gluten-free, because you can do it gluten-free. Just get a gluten-free pie crust. Or make a head. This is also something that you can make the filling ahead. You can actually make the whole pie ahead. Just put it in the refrigerator.
Sure.
You know? So that's a really cool aspect of this book. So if you're like, I'm craving something this or that, you can just pick up this book and flip through and find something that matches that craving.
Right. Salty, sweet.
Yeah.
Pasta, pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really
It's a really
awesome.
unique take. I like that aspect.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that was our recipe this week.
Nice.
And
Thank you for
liked it.
making that. I really, really enjoyed that.
I did too. And like I said, I have another one of those pie crusts, so I think I might make it again.
Awesome. Bring it on. I'm in.
I love brunch foods. They're the best.
Yep.
Normally we would move on to our noteworthy section, but we're going to kind of skip the noteworthy section as this week's main topic is what's in the news.
Yeah. And so we have a few news stories to share for you. And right at the top of the news, we've got that Dunkin Donuts is facing a potential class action lawsuit for an alleged discriminatory upcharge on non-dairy milks. Lactose intolerant coffee drinkers who opt for non-dairy alternatives like soy, almond, or oat milk in their drinks at Dunkin' may pay as much as $2 more for the alternatives, which a new potential class action lawsuit claims could constitute discrimination.
Yeah, $2 seems extreme to me.
It really is. I mean, and I do occasionally go to Dunkin' to get an iced coffee. I'm not a coffee person in general, but as we move into spring, chances are I'm going to have a little iced coffee craving every now and again, and I will go. And yes, they do have vegan options. They have oat milk, they have soy milk, almond milk, and coconut milk. But depending on which milk you choose, there is an upcharge. And I think the lowest upcharge is 75 cents. Yeah. And I think the highest one at our Dunkin' Donuts is like $1.25.
And which milk is that? Do you know?
I think coconut is the most expensive.
Oh, okay.
And I think soy and oat are the cheapest with almond in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually go for the almond milk, and I think the upcharge on the almond milk is 75 cents.
Wow.
Yeah. So the suit, filed last month in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, seeks class certification and represents 10 Dunkin' customers who say they purchased beverages that contained non-dairy milk alternatives between 2018 and 2023 and paid a surcharge for either plant-based or lactose-free milk in California, New York, Texas, Colorado, Massachusetts, and Hawaii. According to legal documents obtained by ABC News, the plaintiffs named in the suit all suffer from lactose intolerance and milk allergies, making it medically necessary to avoid consuming drinks that contain milk. Depending on the location, the customers were charged anywhere from 50 cents to $2.15 extra for the substitution, the filing states. The lawsuit seeks damages amounting to no less than $5 million, and plaintiffs demanded a jury trial.
Wow.
On Friday, Dunkin' filed a waiver that acknowledged the lawsuit. The company has until March 4th to respond.
Oh, we'll keep an eye on this and see how that plays out.
We sure will. Absolutely. The lawsuit specifically points to the allergen statement displayed in Dunkin' stores that advises customers to inform a barista if they have a food allergy before placing an order. Dunkin' will modify its regular beverage offerings to remove sugar or use sugar-free sweeteners at no additional charge for those persons with diabetes or who need to control weight, the lawsuit states. However, they only accommodate those with lactose intolerance or allergies to milk by imposing a surcharge. There is no expertise or additional work required of Dunkin' employees that would substitute whole milk or fat-free milk in place of 2% regular milk, or who would make caffeine-free or sugar-free beverages, to also be able to substitute non-dairy alternatives such as soy, almond, coconut, oat, or other lactose-free milk in place of 2% regular milk. The lawsuit claims that because lactose intolerance and milk allergies are both considered disabilities, Dunkin's conduct violates the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as state anti-discrimination laws where the respective customers purchase their beverages.
That's interesting that they're using the ADA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
If lactose intolerance or milk allergy is considered to be a disability, then it would be foolish of them not to cite the ADA.
Yeah.
The ADA states that public entities are required to make reasonable modifications to policies or practices when it's necessary for an individual with a disability to afford their goods, services, facilities, privileges, or advantages. As cited in the lawsuit, the ADA also states that a public accommodation may not impose a surcharge on a particular individual with a disability or any group of individuals with disabilities to cover the costs of measures such as the provision of auxiliary aids, barrier removal, alternatives to barrier removal, and reasonable modifications in policies, practices, or procedures that are required to provide that individual or group with the non-discriminatory treatment required by the Act or this part. In this case, plaintiffs claimed Dunkin violated the ADA due to the failure to make modifications that are necessary to afford goods and services to persons with lactose intolerance, but instead imposes a surcharge on this group, purportedly to cover the cost of such measures.
Yeah, well, that's good news for people with lactose intolerance and milk allergies. And then it will, in turn, be good news for vegans who just don't want to consume animal products.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do think that it's important. I mean, I've never liked the fact that there's often a surcharge on plant-based milk whenever you go to most coffee shops. I mean, I know it happens in Dunkin Donuts, obviously.
Right.
I know it happens at Starbucks.
Does it?
Yeah. Not that I frequent Starbucks. I think I go there like once a year for a hot chocolate or a chai latte kind of a thing. But I do know that they will upcharge for almond milk or oat milk, that kind of a thing. And so I suppose as a vegan, I've just kind of always accepted it.
Right. I always just looked at it like, well, are those milks more expensive for them to purchase?
And that's what
And they're passing that on to the customer? Is that what's happening here? Or are they trying to discourage the use of those alternative milks? Or, you know, what's happening there?
Right. And that's exactly how I've thought of it too, is that, oh, well, maybe these milks are more expensive and therefore they're passing along the cost to the consumer. But the thing is, there's no way that the milks are as expensive as the surcharge that is being passed on
They're actually
to the consumer.
Making a profit on that surcharge.
Yes.
You would
absolutely.
assume anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while I've never loved the surcharge, I don't do coffee often enough to really be up in arms about it.
Right.
But the idea that this is seriously disadvantaging people with lactose intolerance and with serious milk allergies, because that's no joke. If you have a milk allergy, that can be a really big deal.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really wonderful that this suit is being brought forward.
Yeah. And we'll see if, you know, if you can see that difference play out when you go to a Dunkin Donuts.
We'll see.
In the near future.
Well, I mean, it'll depend how this all shakes out.
Yeah. I'm sure the lawsuit will still go through even if Dunkin goes, tomorrow we're no longer, you know, upcharging for non-dairy milks.
Oh, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll let you know.
Yeah, they've got until March 4th to respond, so we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah. We've got some good news. Kind of falls under the category of maybe a little too late, but the Miami-Dade officials are seeking to close the Miami Seaquarium. You might remember that Toki, the orca, recently died after over 52 years of captivity at the Miami Seaquarium, and there have been multiple deaths, animal deaths at this seaquarium, and they have failed tons and tons of inspections as far as keeping the animals in a humane way. There is no way to keep a sea creature in a humane way in a seaquarium. There isn't.
No.
So anyway, here's what's going on. In an unprecedented and sign of the times decision, Miami-Dade County officials are moving to effectively close the troubled Miami Seaquarium. The marine park on Key Biscayne has been dogged by a series of setbacks and serious failures in its animal care practices. Just this month, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which regulates animal exhibits and theme parks, released another damning report that found urgent deficiencies in a broad range of attractions. The USDA review found 2 dolphin pools in disrepair with several of the mammals ill, issues in the sea lion pen, problems with the penguins facility and enclosure, as well as multiple indoor and outdoor metal enclosures that showed evidence of excessive rust in an aviary. The report also faulted the seaquarium for lacking in trained personnel. It stated, based on the number of non-compliant items identified in this report, this facility does not have enough adequately trained employees that can maintain the professional, acceptable level of husbandry and handling practices for the animals in their collection. So I hope to God that this happens. Here's what's going on. So the Miami Seaquarium is leased. The land that it's on is leased by Miami-Dade County. So what they're going to do is just not renew their lease.
Right. Yeah. The plan is to end the lease agreement.
If they just end that lease agreement, they will be forced to close. So I'm really hoping that this happens. I'm going to keep an eye on this story because what's going on at this place it's just sheer torture for these animals.
It really is. There's actually a video as part of this article from the Palm Beach Post that shows 2 of the Miami Seaquarium's manatees, a pair named Romeo and Juliet, who have been essentially trapped in a 60-foot tank. Now, can we please think about how large manatees are?
Yeah.
It would be absolute torture for a manatee to be in an enclosure that small.
Yeah.
So it's my understanding that those 2 have since been moved to a nearby zoo, that they are no longer part of the Miami Seaquarium.
Yeah.
But they have been moved to a local zoo, hopefully to better conditions. But I'm with Christine on this. I look forward, hopefully, to the closure of the Miami Seaquarium.
Yeah.
It's just very clear that they have not been operating in a way that's even remotely humane.
I mean, even under the best of circumstances, these places are torture chambers.
Yes.
But PETA, the animal rights organization, has been a prime watchdog on the marine park, hailed the county's decision. In a statement, Executive Vice President Tracy Ramen said the beginning of the end for this animal prison appears to be at hand. PETA has champagne on ice and is preparing to celebrate the day the animals are finally freed from the dilapidated concrete tanks where Lolita and so many others lived and died in misery. We urge Mayor Danielle Levine Cava and the county commissioners to act swiftly to shut the Miami Seaquarium down. The animals are ready. Now, I don't know how many of these animals can be reintroduced to the wild, but
yeah,
it's anything is better than how they're living now.
Absolutely.
So that's good news.
It is.
Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah, and I wish all those places would close. Marineland, SeaWorld, it's not entertainment.
No.
I don't see how people are entertained by these animals that are held captive. Animals that live in vast oceans that are held in tanks and then pulled out for 2 hours every day to entertain people. It's hideous.
Yeah.
So, I hope it happens.
That's right. Leave the orcas, the manatees, the dolphins, leave them all in the ocean where they belong.
Yeah. Now, this next thing we wanted to talk about is it's kind of like an op-ed kind of situation where this gentleman asked himself, he's getting older, and he'd asked himself, what happens to us vegans when we get old and we need care, like a nursing home or a care facility? Are there places for us to go, or are there places that will provide what we need as vegans in our later years? And I thought that it was a really interesting question and exploration, because it's not something you think about every day. And I think a lot of people, when they think about vegans, they think of young, skinny, hippie people. You know, they don't often think of people like me or like you or a lot of the other older vegans that we know, you know, middle-aged vegans. I mean, I'm coming up on 60. You know, I'm pushing 60 here. So this is something that you don't think about, but I think it's a really interesting thing to explore.
And so this article, which is posted on Vegan FTA, asks the question, what are the rights of elderly vegans? On January 3rd, 2023, Employment Judge Postal ruled something in a hearing at the Norwich Employment Tribunal, east of England, that no other judge had ruled in any relevant court in the world. In paragraph 39 of his 12-page written judgment on the pre-hearing of Kazmatijana versus the League Against Cruel Sports case, he wrote, I am therefore satisfied and find it easy to conclude that there is an overwhelming evidence before me that ethical veganism is capable of being a philosophical belief and thus a protected characteristic under the Equality Act of 2010. This means that, since then, as the judgment was not appealed and no other judge has ruled against it, it has been unlawful to harass, victimize, discriminate against any ethical vegan in Great Britain. That's lucky for me, or I should say the author, because of where I live, but I am doubly lucky as I was the claimant of the case that led to that protection. The Equality Act of 2010 protects anyone with a recognized protected characteristic, not just in the workplace, but also in housing relationships, such as landlord-tenant, and in the provision of services, both public and private. So any ethical vegan, a term that just means a vegan who follows the official definition of veganism of the Vegan Society, in which all forms of exploitation of animals are sought to be excluded, not only those related to food, as is the case of the so-called dietary vegans, should be covered in a setting of care or residential home, as this qualifies as both a housing situation and services being provided. And because age is another protected characteristic, giving the same protection to elderly vegans as to young vegans should be guaranteed. Also, Article 9 of the Human Rights Act 1998 protects people's rights to their beliefs and their right to practice these beliefs, and nobody has disputed such beliefs include ethical veganism. The Equality Act is part of civil law, not criminal law. So in order to enforce it, anyone who has been discriminated against because of a protected characteristic can only get a legal remedy by initiating litigation against the discriminatory institution, with all the cost, stress, and time that entails. As most people cannot really have the funds, the motivation, or the resources, physical or psychological, to deal with litigation, many institutions can get away with breaking the Equality Act for a considerable time. It's perfectly possible that right now, any care, nursing, or old folks' residential homes could be in breach of the Equality Act and discriminate against their elderly ethical vegan residents, patients, or clients, because none of them have complained of any discrimination or harassment yet, let alone started legal proceedings to assert their rights. And it is perfectly possible that none have complained yet because either they do not know that veganism has become a protected characteristic, or they don't have the energy or resources for a legal fight. If there were vegan care homes, vegan lifestyle care would be guaranteed. But if there are not, the problem of unchecked discrimination against vegans cannot be ruled out without investigating this issue. As I was involved in the case that secured the recognition of the protection of vegans from discrimination, I feel I have to investigate this myself and re-energize the vegan rights momentum I initiated. The first thing I should be looking into is finding out if there are specialized care homes for vegan people, and if not, are there any vegans in regular care homes? Because if there are, I would like to know whether they have been discriminated against, even if they have not officially complained, and what can be done about it. I thought that the best way to answer this question would be to ask vegan organizations about it. By the way, for simplification, from now on, I will be using the generic term care home to mean either residential homes for older people, nursing homes, or care homes for people with special care requirements. I contacted 17 vegan societies around the world, from Australia, Austria, Canada, France, Germany, India, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Kenya, Lebanon, New Zealand, Norway, South Africa, Switzerland, the Netherlands, the UK, and the USA. And I sent them this message in August 2023. I am a UK freelance writer on veganism issues. For an article commissioned to me by Vegan FTA, can I ask you for information about care and nursing homes for old people? Are there any in your country which are vegan and have only vegan residents? If so, can you please tell me which ones? When I say that is vegan, I mean that only serves vegan food, that all toiletries are suitable for vegans, and none of the furniture or bedding contains animal products such as wool, leather, silk, etc. If there are no completely vegan homes, are there at least any that only serve plant-based food? Not vegetarian, but plant-based. I am not talking about homes that can cater to vegan residents because they can provide vegan options, but homes that are specifically aimed at vegans and plant-based people. After more than 2 months of waiting for them to reply, 11 vegan societies did. They all said that they do not know of any vegan care or nursing home or any home that only serves plant-based food. So this makes things challenging.
Yeah, he provides some extracts of some of the replies he got. And most of them said, "We're sorry. Unfortunately, we could not find any information about any vegan care homes."
Right. And so you have to imagine that if statistics don't exist, the institutions themselves don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So chances are there are care homes out there that are able to provide for vegan residents.
Yeah. I would hope that there are some that at least can provide vegan meals.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
I mean, that's the least of it that they can do. And I'm hoping that there's some out there that would do that. Mm-hmm. It's not something you think about, though, you know, and I'm not surprised that there aren't any vegan care homes because we're only 1% to 2% of the population. There wouldn't be, at least not now, enough people to serve it, you know?
Right.
But it'd be really cool if there was a 100% vegan care home.
Yes.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and some of the responses did note that, you know, perhaps the lack of these facilities at this time really indicates that there maybe aren't a huge number of elderly vegans requiring these services at this point, where in another 30 or 40 years, that could be very different.
Yeah, it could be exponentially larger.
Yes.
Numbers of vegans needing care.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we are going to live longer and probably, hopefully anyway, live healthier.
Yes, hopefully.
But I'm sure there will be some of us that are going to require some sort of professional care. And hopefully there'll be some place that we can go to get that care that will provide what we need as vegans.
Yeah.
I'm going to include a link to this very lengthy but awesome article that this gentleman wrote.
So well written, so well researched. Yeah, it's definitely worth the read.
Yeah.
When it is something we are all going to face at some point.
Yeah.
In one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This next news item might not surprise you, or maybe it will. Meat and dairy industry giants hold the plant power behind many vegan brands.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, this comes from a news site called The Conversation, and the headline on this article is Meat and Dairy Industry Giants Hold the Plant Power Behind Many Vegan Brands. Cast a vote for a greener planet, lower food bills, better health, and kindness to animals. And you don't even have to wait for a general election, states the global Veganuary campaign that encourages people to eat plant-based throughout January. Transforming the world's food system through large-scale reduction in meat production is essential if we are to preserve the planet's natural ecosystems. But I don't believe that Veganuary's solution is the way to do that. While the switch to eating vegan food may seem empowering, it places an unrealistic pressure upon consumers to drive the shift to plant-based foods. By failing to highlight the state-backed corporate power at the heart of our food system, Veganuary arguably disempowers its followers. In collaboration with Carice Davis, MA student in development studies at SOAS University in London, I researched the ownership structure and marketing strategies of several plant-based food companies, and we found that many brands that are celebrated for sustainable plant-based food production are owned by giant meat and dairy companies implicated in allegation of large-scale environmental destruction. Take Vivera, a pioneer in plant-based food. The Dutch company produces a wide range of vegetarian and vegan foods, such as vegan hot dogs, plant salmon fillets, Tex-Mex strips, and vegan steak. The Vivera website suggests that consumers should buy vegan products to make a huge difference for human health and the well-being of our planet, and states that you can improve the world with every bite you take by eating plant-based foods. This is what we call greenwashing.
And then some.
Yeah, plain and simple.
I'd go further than that, actually, but carry on.
Yeah. However, Vivera's online marketing and product packaging do not highlight to consumers that it is owned by JBS, the world's largest meat producer. Every day, JBS's global operations slaughter 8.7 million birds, 92,600 hogs, and 42,700 head of cattle, according to the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy, a U.S.-based think tank.
Can we go back and say that's every day?
Every day, yeah. This is the company that's telling you they're helping you save the world, right? JBS's purchase of Vivera in 2021 doesn't signify a move away from meat. Shortly after acquiring the plant-based food company, it announced plans to invest $130 million in two of its U.S. beef processing plants to increase cattle slaughtering capacity by around 300,000 a year. JBS is the biggest purchaser of cattle from the Amazon and therefore a major contributor to deforestation. Another case in point is Allpro. The well-known manufacturer of vegan dairy products was bought by Danone in 2017 in response to the growing popularity of milk alternatives. But the language in Allpro's website, for example, doing your bit with every bite or every sip, seems at odds with Danone's claims to be the #1 leading brand worldwide for fresh dairy products. Cow's milk creates 3 times more greenhouse gas emissions, uses 10 times as much land, and twice as much fresh water than plant-based alternatives, according to a calculation by the website Our World in Data. While Danone is expanding into the plant-based market, this does not imply a retreat from its core dairy product lines. As one food industry newsletter put it, the company is looking to cross-promote its plant-based and traditional dairy beverages to households where individuals dabble in both categories. Both cases exemplify a broader trend where giant meat and dairy-based conglomerates, including JBS and Danone, are buying up smaller plant-based food companies as part of their corporate expansion strategies, according to a 2022 report by IPES Food, a coalition of food system experts. At present, meat and dairy producers are supported by mega state subsidies. In the EU and US, livestock farmers receive about 1,000 times more subsidies than plant-based and cultivated meat producers. And we've talked about those subsidies in the past.
Yeah.
Yet Veganuary's apolitical stance ignores the support that the meat and dairy industries receive from rich country governments, while the planet desperately needs a major shift away from meat production and consumption. Mega food corporations probably won't be the ones to lead the transition to a greener planet. And this article goes on to tell you how to support plant-based food production. And we'll include a link to this article so you can learn how to do that. But it is important to bear in mind that some of the plant-based foods that you're buying are owned by large meat and dairy industries.
Yes, and I know that right at the beginning you referred to, the actions or the advertising done by Vivera, the subsidiary of JBS, as greenwashing. I would go further. I would call it out and out deception.
Yeah.
I really, really would.
Yeah.
That they're essentially using a plant-based food company to hide the fact that they are also one of the world's largest meat producers.
Yeah.
I personally, I'm really glad that I know this, and I know that this is mostly a European brand. This is not one that we find in the U.S.
But the same thing is happening here in the U.S.
The same thing is happening here, absolutely. And so if I knew that Vivera was owned by JBS, there's no way I would buy their products.
Right.
No way.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter how good they were. It wouldn't matter how sustainably sourced they were.
Right.
Because that money is not going to an independent plant-based food company.
Right.
It's going to the world's largest meat producer.
Right. I would say something similar would be buying the vegan Reese's peanut butter cups or the vegan Hershey bars.
It's similar. Yes.
Sure, it's great, all the vegans get excited when they see things like that, but it's not great. Don't support those companies because you're supporting a company that is just trying to grab a share of the market.
Yeah.
They don't care about the environment or the fact that they're using slave labor and child labor to harvest their chocolate. They don't care about that. They don't care about anything but the bottom line, and all they're trying to do is get a share of the plant-based food market because it's trendy now.
Right.
So when you're buying vegan foods, I guess just try to educate yourself as to what company makes this food,
right?
And then steer away from the ones that are made by Kraft and
not only
Hershey's
the ones, exactly. Not only the ones that you have to go beyond that first label.
Yeah.
And you have to find out, is there a parent company?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is this an independent company or is this part of a larger conglomerate? And if it is part of a larger conglomerate, what is the parent company?
Yeah.
Because you can think that you're shopping small, you can think that you're shopping independent, you can think that you're supporting plant-based food companies when really they are owned by meat and dairy producers.
Yeah.
And so you could be inadvertently supporting the very thing that you've made a lifestyle choice to fight against.
Yeah. And these companies also use vegan content creators to push their brand.
This is true.
When people see, Philadelphia is making a vegan cream cheese, and then vegan content creators are sharing that they've tried it or here's where they found it and all that. Now they're supporting the company that makes Philadelphia cream cheese, which is Kraft Foods, which is a terrible company. I mean, even if you just look at their dairy segment, you're supporting that. You are supporting dairy by buying a plant-based Philadelphia cream cheese. I don't want to be a big downer or a party pooper because I see people getting excited about these things, but I think it's important to think twice and think deeper about where your money is going and to vote with your dollars. You don't want your money going to support a dairy industry or a large food conglomerate or a large meat conglomerate. You just don't as a vegan. I mean, hopefully you don't. I mean, I know we don't.
Right.
And hopefully you don't. It's just important to, like Sam said, check those labels, and it will say in small print on the back of any package what parent company that food is coming from.
Yep.
So,
but like anything, read the small print.
Yeah, read the labels. I mean, as vegans, we're used to reading labels. So just read a little further past all the ingredients, and see where this is all being generated from. Yep. What company is actually producing these foods. Eat vegetables and whole foods.
Yeah. Gotta love them.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's probably meat and dairy companies that also produce produce.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
And it's really hard to find out where your produce is coming from.
This
You
is
can
true.
look at that little sticker and it says maybe product of Canada or something like that. But
Right.
there's not a whole lot of information
Yeah, it's a little harder.
on produce. So
Yeah.
what do we want to talk about next?
Well, next we have a sad bit of news. This coming from animals247.com. Just recently, on January 22nd, vegan advocate Dexter King, son of Martin Luther King Jr., died at age 62.
Yeah, and I wasn't even aware that Dexter King was a vegan advocate.
Oh, no?
I was aware he existed, but for some reason he fell under my radar
All right.
as a vegan advocate.
Well, going vegan in 1987, as advised by Dick Gregory, may have almost doubled Dexter King's lifespan in his long fight against cancer. Dexter Scott King, 62, second son of Martin Luther King Jr., and influential for more than 35 years in boosting vegetarianism and veganism among African Americans, on the morning of January 22nd, 2024, transitioned peacefully in his sleep at home with me in Malibu, his wife Leah Weber King said in a media statement distributed by the Atlanta-based Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Social Change. Dexter Scott King and Leah Weber King had been married since 2013. King died from prostate cancer, a disease he apparently fought for most of his life. He gave it everything and battled this terrible disease until the end. As with all the challenges in his life, he faced this hurdle with bravery and might, Mrs. King said. According to a 1997 profile by Kevin Sack of the Tampa Bay Times, Dexter King dropped out of his father's alma mater, Morehouse College, because of an illness he would not discuss. He said the condition became manageable after he adopted a vegan diet and took a journey of self-discovery. In 1987, Dexter King visited a health spa that athlete, comedian, and activist Dick Gregory founded in the Bahamas. He became vegan on his 27th birthday. Influenced by Gregory, I became a strict vegetarian. I developed a passion for health and nutrition, Dexter King testified in 2003. My diet consists of fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, and legumes only, and has for the past 15 years now. His family, mother Coretta Scott King, sisters Bernice and Yolanda, and brother Martin Luther III, greeted his new regimen with curiosity. My family has always been very open-minded, said Dexter King, but certainly veganism was not their orientation. They weren't sure what to think. And when I first became a vegetarian, I was very self-righteous about it. As I've aged and become more seasoned with time, I've mellowed. The best testimonial is the proof in the pudding. Part of that proof was that Dexter King's mother, Coretta Scott King, also persuaded by her lifelong friend Barbara Reynolds, became vegan in 1995 and remained vegan for the last 12 years of her life, as did several of her other friends. One of them was Rosa Parks, whose 1955 refusal to give up her seat on a bus to a white man in Montgomery, Alabama, led to her arrest and touched off a boycott of the city-owned bus company led by Martin Luther King Jr., then a young local minister. So this is just amazing to me. I knew of Dexter King, and I knew of his advocacy, but I didn't realize how deep.
Yeah, that he had made his whole family go vegan, and
that I didn't realize
Rosa
how
Parks
deep
apparently went vegan
yes.
because of him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so, we honor the passing of a remarkable advocate.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Mr. King.
Wish him peace, in times to come.
Yeah. This next thing we're going to talk about is something that Go Vegan World is doing. Again, we, in a previous episode, have talked about Go Vegan World and their amazing ad campaigns across the UK, originating in Ireland. They have buses and billboards and all kinds of really great vegan ads. So they have a new campaign going. This comes from irishnews.com. Vegan Group's ad campaign challenges the socio-cultural norm of animal use. And at the top of the article is a bus with one of their ads that we've talked about in the past. And it's large bus-long ad that shows a mother cow and a calf, and it says, "Dairy takes babies from their mothers." A vegan advocacy group has launched an advertising campaign in Northern Ireland to challenge the socio-cultural norm of animal use. The series of hard-hitting ads are featured on 100 buses across Northern Ireland. And they include slogans such as, "It's not a personal choice when someone is killed," and "Dairy takes babies from mothers," aimed to ignite conversations. Go Vegan World say they want to challenge the public to consider the ethical consequences of their actions and counter the argument that veganism infringes on personal choice. Sandra Higgins, founder of Go Vegan World, said, "We live in a speciesist culture where it's normal to use other animals as human resources whilst maintaining the illusion that we are decent people or even animal lovers. Failure to consider how our use impacts on them, how they feel, or even to acknowledge that they can feel, are necessary precursors to being able to use their bodies and lives." Go Vegan World provides factual information to the public that challenges the socio-cultural norm of animal use. If the industry is uncomfortable about the public knowledge of how to convert living, feeling beings into animal products for human consumption and the environmental consequences of these processes, surely this is an indication that they need to change and not that the facts should cease to be seen by members of the public. Similar campaigns were launched in Northern Ireland at the start of 2020 and 2023, sparking criticism from the agricultural sector. So go Vegan World.
Absolutely.
I love this organization. Last time we spoke of them, they did reach out to us and thanked us for bringing their campaign to light.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And we will do that once again because I love what they're doing and I love the messaging behind it.
Yes.
That, like they said, it's like, why are we hiding the facts? Is the public not able to digest
Right.
what's actually happening? Why are we hiding what's happening in the animal agriculture industry?
Because it's convenient.
Yeah, well, and I understand in Ireland how, and the same in the U.S., that the animal agriculture industry is not happy with their campaign at all. And they are always on the agricultural websites on their watch list of advocates to watch out for.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That's not surprising at all. And
Yeah, it just means they're doing the right thing.
That's exactly what it means.
Yep. And we have one last story to tell you about in What's New in Vegan News.
We do. And in this article, and this comes from thefire.org, animal rights advocates sue after facing ongoing censorship and arrest for peaceful advocacy in Houston Public Park. The city of Houston can't pick and choose who can speak freely in its public parks. Today, the Law and Religion Clinic at the University of Texas and the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression filed a lawsuit against the city of Houston, several Houston police officers, and Discovery Green Conservancy after police officers arrested an animal rights advocate for refusing to give up his First Amendment right to free speech in Discovery Green, a public park described as the crown jewel of public spaces in downtown Houston. The management of Houston's Public Discovery Green Park was concerned that passersby might be offended by the advocate's message. The officers' actions were a clear violation of the advocate's First Amendment right to speak freely in a public park, a park where peaceful protests happen regularly. It's highly hypocritical and discriminatory to allow certain groups to exercise free speech, but not us, said Darius Dubash, the animal rights advocate who was arrested. We're seeking a ruling affirming that no one, whether the police or park management, can ban people from peaceful expression in a public park like Discovery Green. Dubash and his fellow advocate, Dr. Faraz Harsini, are both immigrants who are passionate about animal rights. Harsini escaped to the United States from Iran after protesting against the Iranian government and was granted a green card for his research on cancer and infectious diseases. Dubash, who is from India, is a former marketing manager who now devotes most of his time to animal rights advocacy. Darius and Faraz each fled countries where they couldn't speak like they do here, said law and religion clinic attorney John Grail. They cherish their rights, and we're proud to fight for them.
Yes, and both of these gentlemen are wonderful vegan advocates that you should follow. We actually heard Dr. Harsini speak in Washington.
Yes, we did.
At the AVA Summit, and his story is really incredible. And he is a hugely passionate advocate. Follow him on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes.
And I believe he also has a YouTube channel where he posts videos about the actions that he's taking.
Right. Now, just to be clear, the demonstration in question was a cube of truth.
Yeah.
Done by Anonymous for the Voiceless.
Yeah.
Something I have always wanted to do.
There is a Buffalo chapter of Anonymous for the Voiceless.
We really need to get involved with that because I have always wanted to do that. So several times during the summer of 2022, Dubash and Harsini went to Discovery Green to host a series of educational events, including these cubes of truth. In each case, they held a television screen playing excerpts from a documentary about the mistreatment of animals, and they only spoke to people who engaged with them. And this is standard practice for a cube of truth.
Mm-hmm.
There are usually folks outside the cube who are interacting with people around, like encouraging them to go watch the documentaries.
If people stop, they
if
encourage
people stop,
them.
They will encourage them. But it is an almost passive form of public activism, which I find really, really interesting. However, almost every time they demonstrated, park management and security asked them to leave, claiming that passersby could be offended by their message. And so they complied. But the last time, Darius stood his ground, calmly explaining to park management and security, you still have to abide by the First Amendment because the park is publicly owned. The park management's response? Right, but we also choose, and we don't feel the content is appropriate. When 2 Houston police officers arrived, Darius again calmly explained his First Amendment rights. Yet the officers still arrested Darius and handcuffed him in a chair in the park security office for more than 2 hours, until he was taken to the county jail and charged with criminal trespass. The district attorney dismissed the charge. The lawsuit seeks to vindicate Harsini and Dubash's constitutional right to share their beliefs freely in a public space. It asks the court to prohibit the city and Discovery Green Conservancy from interfering with Harsini and Dubash's peaceful advocacy at the park, and it seeks damages for First Amendment and Fourth Amendment violations.
Yeah, I'm really, really thrilled that they're filing this lawsuit.
Yeah.
I want to look into where it's going because this happened in September. More and more you hear about peaceful protesters. I mean, come on, it's been happening throughout history that peaceful protesters are being treated poorly, arrested, and they are just exercising their First Amendment right.
Yes.
To free speech.
Yeah.
And if they're not being violent or they're not disturbing the peace in any way, there's no reason why they should be handcuffed and taken off of the premises.
No, not at all.
And they cite because they found what they were protesting to be offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, I don't think a lot of people find the content of these documentaries, and I know frequently it's Dominion that is used.
Yeah.
At these cubes of truth. And I've stated before, I can't watch Dominion. I've tried. I can't get through the first 6 minutes. I absolutely cannot. Yeah. It's just not possible. So I understand that people would find it hard to watch, would find it terrifying, would find it disturbing. Absolutely. But if you find it offensive, which I find the slaughter of animals to be offensive,
right,
then that should motivate you to attempt to change it.
Yeah.
Not to remove it from public consciousness.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll do a deep dive on this and get an update if we can. Yeah,
we'll report back as to where that lawsuit stands now. It's plain and simple. Their rights were violated.
Indeed.
So, And so that wraps up what is new in the vegan news for this episode.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. I always like to deep dive and scour the interwebs so that you don't have to.
You and your interwebs.
Yeah. And I often find things that I wasn't aware of. Yeah. I didn't know that Dr. Harsini had this lawsuit going on. I didn't even know that they were arrested.
Right.
So
I hadn't heard about this either.
Yeah. So there you go. And I follow him. So, I mean, come on, let's face it. Whatever the meta gods feed to you on social media, you're not seeing everybody's content. So obviously I need to reach out to his content and start liking and commenting on his posts so that they're fed to me in my feed and I can keep up to date on what's happening there. So
there you go.
I'll reach out to him and find out what's going on.
Sounds good to me. That brings us to this week's helpful fact to encourage you to go and stay vegan. This week's question is, what if your family and friends don't support you? Well, this is probably the main reason why people don't stay vegan. Relationships and food are a huge part of everyone's lives, and it can be exhausting, both physically and mentally, to be the difficult one, the one who's always requesting a separate dinner or having to cook different meals for themselves. This kind of constant friction can break you. It's tempting to give up, keep the peace, and eat the same as everyone else, animals on the plate or not. There's no getting around this. It can be hard to be vegan when your spouse, children, parents, friends, colleagues don't want you to be. Here are some tips to help you stay strong in these situations. First, batch cook hearty meals for yourself and then store them in the fridge or freezer to eat throughout a work week. 2, introduce vegan days in your home for the rest of your family to start seeing the benefits of veganism and how tasty the food can really be. 3, teach your family how to make their own food. There's nothing more empowering than having them learn to cook their own meals. So some good tips there.
Yeah, definitely some good tips. And it can be very difficult if your family and friends don't support your veganism.
Yes, it can.
But
know that there is support out there.
Yeah, we're here.
We are absolutely here. And, it's worth it to stick to your ethics.
Absolutely. That brings us to our favorite part of the show.
Must be listener shout out time.
It's listener shout out.
Just want to give a shout out to all my fans watching. I love you guys. I love you.
This week's listener shout out goes to Darlene Suba of Yeah Pierogi. While Darlene isn't herself vegan, she supports her vegan community and produces fabulous vegan pierogi and vegan chili. She can often be found at vegan events, selling her delicious foods and supporting other vegan vendors. Thanks for listening, Darlene.
Yes, thank you so much for listening, Darlene. And you can contact us with your t-shirt size and address so we can send you a CNC swag bag. You can email us that information at compassionandcucumbers@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Instagram or private message us on Facebook.
And for the rest of you out there, if you want a listener shout out, please email or DM us. Let us know what you think of the show and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Please do. I think we've said it before. My listener shout out list it's really waning and it's sad.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Because I know there's more of you out there.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That brings us to our vegan org of the week. What is our vegan org of the week, Sam?
This week, we are celebrating the Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy. I love this organization.
Yeah.
The Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy works to increase the impact of vegan advocacy worldwide by increasing the effectiveness of vegan advocates and organizations, and by helping to create a more unified and resilient vegan movement. They provide on-site and online trainings, organizational consulting, and leadership support at low to no cost by highly experienced trainers. They have online courses, webinars, and in-person training for individuals and organizations that aim to improve vegan advocacy effectiveness. And I have to say, I can personally vouch for their webinars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently registered for one of their online courses, which is not a face-to-face online course. It's, do on your own time at your own pace kind of thing. And it is a certification in vegan advocacy. And it is actually taught by one of my favorite vegan advocates, Dr. Melanie Joy.
Oh, I want to do that too.
It's really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
I haven't been moving through it as quickly as I would like.
Work.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's really, really wonderful. And I would highly recommend. And it's a very inexpensive course. And there's also a mechanism through which you can take the course for free.
Right.
If you don't have the resources to pay for it.
Yes.
Yeah. So just know that that is there. And to learn more, you can go to veganadvocacy.org.
That brings us to our wrap up. For the sake of time, I'm just going to tell you, join the Vegan Voter Hub, the AFA Vegan Voter Hub. Go to the Agriculture Fairness Alliance's website and click on the link to the Vegan Voter Hub. Also, I would like to remind you, if you aren't already, to please subscribe to our show on your podcast app. Subscribe on your podcast app. Subscribe on our YouTube. Leave us a review if you want. We used to tell you to leave 5 stars. I don't care how many stars you leave us. Leave us 12.
I don't think that's possible.
Do all those things. Anyway, but most of all, join the Vegan Voter Hub.
And with that, it's time to sign off. You have just listened to episode 124 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, and there's nothing left to say but where cukes and compassion are always the fashion on the podcast.
Why does that make us giggle so much?
I really don't know.
Thanks, James.
Have a great week, everyone.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
We love you.
Bye-bye.
The end.
If you'd like to support the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, well, you can do that by hopping on over to our Patreon page and becoming a patron. We have all the recipes from our vegan kitchen series up there, and we'll be adding some patron-only episodes in the near future. So thank you for supporting us at whatever level that you choose, and thank you again for listening to Compassion and Cucumbers podcast.